No matter what the situation is, you can still become unsuccessful off of valid excuses. On today's episode or today's session, the conversation before we get into the Q&A is going to be explaining the difference between an amateur and a professional, right? And I think this is a very, very important topic when it comes to the mindset behind what it takes to win in this industry and the approach that majority of people take, which is more from an amateur's perspective, but unwillingly and unknowingly, people take the approach of an amateur and they're expecting to get big results. And in reality, you can't treat this profession as though an amateur would and expect to get professional results. It just doesn't work like that. So I've been pondering over the last few days, what are some of the key differences between somebody who takes the approach to this industry as a professional and somebody who takes the approach as an amateur. And these differences are very small, but they make such a big difference. Just going back based on my own journey and the journey of a lot of people that have become successful, either through my own distribution or just through people that I've, watched and learned from over the years. So I've come up with 8 bullet points that I believe is a main difference between individuals who come to this industry with a professional approach in terms of their mindset and those who are struggling that typically come with an amateur's approach. And I think a lot of these things most people may not even realize that they're doing, but it's really hindering them and slowing down their progress. And of course, after we go through these 8 points, I recommend you have a notepad and pen or something to take notes with. Jot down these 8 points because honestly, if I was to go back into year 1 and I was to understand this particular concept, it would have saved me so much time, energy, and even money. So definitely jot down these 8 points. And straight after this, we'll get into the Q&A. So the first one I'll put down here is professionals build skills, amateurs chase results, right? I'm going to repeat that one again because I think that's super important to jot down and to understand. Let me just spotlight this. So I'll repeat that again. Professionals build skills and amateurs chase results, right? And I think, I mentioned this in maybe a training I did, I believe, on stage in either Germany or Lisbon. In my personal journey, whilst everybody was focused on how much money they can make, I was focused more on how many skills I can develop. And that is the first distinction in mindset or approach between somebody who's treating this as a professional and somebody who comes with the approach of an amateur. It's a bit ironic because you join the industry to make money, right? Of course, we all join the industry because we want to make more money. But if you compare it to any other profession, if you want to become a doctor, you want to become a lawyer, you want to become an engineer, all these professions you would also join because you want to make money. Money is always the end goal. But the process or what you need to focus on is not how can I make more money. You don't study to become a doctor or a lawyer thinking the whole time, how do I make more money? You study to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or a pilot thinking, what are the skills I need to develop in order to qualify to become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer? And once you have qualified, you now apply those skills and then you get paid and then you make money, right? So I think that is the first major difference in mindset. People that struggle for a very long time, they don't focus on the skills that they need to develop. They're just thinking, how can I quickly make money? What's the fastest way for me to make money? What's the easiest way for me to make money? And although that might work in a short term, in a long run, there's no way you're going to sustain a business of this magnitude with no skills, right? So the first thing I'd recommend is go get your hands on either GoPro, which is Eric Worre's first network marketing book, and go get your hands on his new book, which basically goes through the exact skills that you need to develop to become a professional. And that's what GoPro is all about. It's about deciding to become a professional in this industry and moving away from being an amateur. So that's the first distinction, is Professionals build skills, and amateurs, they focus on results, which is money. Okay. And that's not to say that results is bad to focus on, but understanding that skills lead to results, skills lead to money, right? So you can't really miss that important part out. Number 2 is professionals commit before they see the results. Amateurs commit only after. This one is key. I'll repeat that again. Professionals commit before they see results. Amateurs commit only after they see results. And if I track this back to my journey, as you guys know, I didn't see results for 3 years, but I was committed to learning. I was committed to every event. I was committed to showing up to every training. I was committed to putting in the work. I was committed to the process regardless of the results. And with most people, most of my peers at that time, they would only have the same level of commitment, or not even the same, or even half the level of commitment, only if they saw certain results. You know, if they were working and putting in the hours and studying, but the results wasn't showing, they were very quickly to give up. They were very quick to be like, this is not working. They were very quick to slow down. They were very quick to get distracted. Whereas for myself and many other people that I've seen success in the industry, it was a commitment to the process, right? It was a commitment regardless of results. It was basically a commitment until we saw results. Very, very big difference. A commitment until we saw results. So that is number 2. A professional in the industry understands that things will take time, understands that you need to build skills, and a professional is committed to the process until they see results. Not if they see results, until they see results. And an amateur is only committed if they see results. So that is a very small distinction in mindset, but it's a massive difference in terms of results. Number 3, professionals have a business schedule. Amateurs work when they feel like it. It's another big one. Professionals have a schedule. Amateurs only work when they feel like it. So again, I mean, it's such a simple concept, you know, having a schedule. And my philosophy behind this is never go to bed without the following day being planned out to the T. So every single hour, you know exactly what you need to do within your business. You've got your meeting set, you've got your study hours set, you've got your phone call set, you've got your trading session set. Like everything is pretty much scheduled within your calendar. Number 2, don't finish the week without your week being set. So you know what your goal is for the week, you know what your plan is for the week, your meetings, you know what you're trying to achieve that week. And the same thing goes for the month. Don't finish the month without the following month being mapped out. Like, what is your overall goal for the month? And last but not least, don't finish the year without the following year being mapped out. This is a very, very simple concept, but this alone, doing this daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, will separate you from 95% of people. Professionals come to the market, or professionals come to the environment with a scheduled approach to the day, a scheduled approach to the week, the month, and the year. Amateurs just kind of work when they feel like it. So again, very, very small distinction, but something that creates a massive difference in results. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, professionals measure inputs, amateurs measure outputs. This one is key, because when you really think about it, outputs, you don't really have much control over. Like, you don't really have physical control on how many people sign up to your business. You don't have physical control on momentum. You don't have physical control on sales. You know, these are things you can influence, but you don't have control over it. So an amateur just is so focused on the result. How many people signed up, or how much was my sales, or what's my momentum looking like? But a professional understands your input directly leads to your output. So whatever you're putting in is going to directly correlate to the results that you're getting. So how a professional will look at it is, what are the things that I can control? How many phone calls I make? How many hours am I studying? How much time I spend on the charts? How many customers am I calling every day? How many times am I posting on my social media? These are all things that you can control, which are called inputs. And if you can control those inputs as a professional, you just need to think, okay, how much of these inputs do I need to consistently do? Do I need to increase these inputs? And if I do increase it, or if I do have a certain amount of inputs, what type of result or output is that going to lead to? So inputs you can control. These are things that you do. Outputs are the results, which you cannot control. So if you focus all your energy on the inputs, you are essentially influencing your output and result. But if you're only focused on the output, you can't control it, and whatever you can't control, there's nothing you could change or do anything about. So a lot of people get stuck on the outputs, on the result, not understanding what input leads to certain results. Once you understand what input leads to certain results, you can change, tweak, or increase or decrease those inputs, which will lead to a desired result. So amateurs focus on outputs, professionals focus on inputs. Very important. Number 5, this is huge for our profession. Professionals expect rejection and amateurs take it personally. This one's very, very hard, especially if you're new to the industry. You may not understand that a no doesn't mean no. It even means not now. It means I haven't got enough information. It means maybe I have trust issues with the system. It means maybe I'm not confident in myself. I'm speaking from a customer's perspective or prospect's perspective. But no isn't personal. And I remember in the beginning, when I first joined the industry, I had a list of 100 people. And I just had this imagination in my head that at least 90 of the 100 were going to support me. We're going to understand the vision. We're going to join me. We're going to make money with me. I literally sat down, after looking at the compensation plan, and I had this thought in my head with all my friends that we're all going to get rich together. And I got so excited when I had this thought in my head and this imagination. Reality hit, and it was the complete opposite. Only one friend at the time understood the same vision that I understood, believed in the system, wanted to join me, wanted to make money, and actually stayed the course. The reality was most people didn't understand this concept. Most people were skeptical. Most people didn't believe in it. Most people said no. And in the beginning, I took that as a reflection of me, that people were saying no to me. People didn't believe in me. People didn't want to work with me. People didn't want to make money with me. And I think most people unintentionally, they take every no personally. Whereas a professional understands a no is just data. It's not personal, it's just data. A no just means that person has objections, they have concerns, right? And there's typically only, I will say, 4 or 5 main objections. It's usually time, or it's money, or they are skeptical, lack of information. Those are typically the main 4, or lack of belief that they could do it. I'll say those are the 5 reasons why somebody will say no to an opportunity. So a professional looks at a no as information. It's one of those 5 objections. An amateur will take things personally, and that will ruin their confidence, their mood. It will make them not want to keep prospecting, continue with the business. It will just shatter their hopes and dreams, right? Which it did for me very early on, until I understood this mindset shift. Professionals understand a no is just data, and amateurs take no's personally. So again, very, very important distinction to make. Number 6, huge one. Professionals invest in themselves. Amateurs spend on comfort. Right, I'll repeat that again. Professionals invest in themselves. Amateurs spend on comfort. I'm a huge advocate of investing into myself. I would say over the last 10 years, I've invested well over 6-figure sum into books, seminars, mentorship, coaching programs, events. I'm really big on investing into yourself, because if you think about it, if you understand that whatever's in your mind, like the way you think, your experience, your knowledge, your perspective, your understanding, right? All of this is an asset, and it's the biggest asset that you'd have in any business that you want to build, right? So the biggest investment that you should be willing to make is an investment into your mind, an investment into your experiences, an investment into your knowledge, an investment into your network. These are all basically the biggest return on investment you can make is in yourself. So here was my rule of thumb that I picked up from a coach a long time ago, was until I was making between $10,000 to $25,000 a month, everything that I wanted to invest into was basically back into myself. That was the major priority. So there's loads of things you can invest into, like just from an investment perspective. There's real estate, there's stocks, there's crypto, there is business ideas that you can invest into, but nothing will bring you a bigger return than an investment into yourself, an investment into your skill, your knowledge, your experience, your network. So again, until I was making 10 to 25 grand a month, the majority of money in terms of what I allocated to investing was to go back into myself. It was after that income bracket where the doors opened up to other type of investments. But the main focus was investing into myself. Amateurs are not really trying to spend money on investing into themselves, because again, their main focus is not building skills or experience. Their main focus is just how can I make quick money, right? But long term, making money is not the asset, because you can make money and lose it. But once you invest into yourself, you are now what produces the result. You are now what produces the money. So you essentially are the asset, right? So understanding the difference between those two, super, super important. Okay, number 7. This is probably the biggest one. Excuse me. I'm very big on focusing on what you can control and not putting too much emphasis, energy, or emotion into what you can't control. And so number 7 is professionals take responsibility, amateurs find excuses. That is number 7. This one is huge, because I'm even going to go as far as saying, learn to take responsibility even if you're not in a position where you are responsible for a situation. Now, why do I say this? No matter what the situation is, even if your excuses are valid, you can still be broke from valid excuses. You can still become unsuccessful off of valid excuses, right? And so whatever is going wrong in my business, whatever is lacking, whatever isn't where it needs to be, whatever the situation is, my thought process is, what can I do about the situation? Whether this situation was my fault or not, right? Whether I should take responsibility or not, whether it's my fault or not, I'm going to choose to take responsibility, because with that type of mindset, I can control the future outcomes, or I can influence the future outcomes of majority of situations in my business. But if I was to play the blame game or to make an excuse, right? This isn't working because so-and-so did this to me. I can't succeed because I don't have a mentor, or, I can't get to this event because I can't afford it. These are all excuses which could actually be quite valid, but your goals and your results do not care about your excuses, even if those excuses are valid. So whatever happens within my business or even in my personal life, my thought process is, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for the situation. What exactly does that look like? It means, what can I personally do to influence the output of this situation? What can I do to influence the result of this situation? Right? Very, very important shift in mindset. And I hear a lot of people make excuses like, my mentor doesn't support me. You know, I can't build the business because of this. I can't, I can't focus because of this and because of that. These are all things that put the responsibility on someone else or something else, right? It's very, very hard to take responsibility, especially for things that maybe are not your fault. But you taking responsibility is going to put you in a position of great power, right? So again, professionals take responsibility, amateurs find excuses. And last but not least, this is a big one and probably would make more sense the bigger your organization grows. But professionals build systems, amateurs rely on effort, right? This is a huge one. And I think I spoke about this last week. I'll repeat that again. Professionals build systems, amateurs rely on effort. And I mentioned this last week that if you're not careful when building this business, if you're not building it in a way where one day it can run without you, you have essentially created yourself a high-paid job. You've created yourself a high-paid job. And so unless that is your goal, to always have to work to see results, and the moment you stop working, your business crumbles. Unless that is your goal, understand the difference. Professionals build systems. So when you're building your business, I think have in mind at the back of your head, however I'm building this, if I was to decide to turn off my phone for a week and also not come online for a week, what would happen in my business? Is there enough systems in place? Is there scheduled trainings in place? Is there events happening within my business? Is there prospecting calls happening? Is there a training onboarding system in place? Like, just think of all the things necessary to run a business and think how many of those things rely on you having to be there to do it. If you have to be there for the majority of things, it means you currently have a job. And there's nothing wrong in that, because in the very beginning, you're not going to have many systems. You're not going to have much leverage because you're just starting out. But the important thing is that mindset, that long term, as you're building, you want to eventually have things in a way where if you was to step away for a week or a month or however long, the business can still sustain and operate without you. So in the beginning, leverage your mentor system, but eventually you want to build your own system that is still in correlation with whatever, hierarchy system that you're a part of. So those are the 8 things. I'll repeat them again for those who maybe missed any. This is professionals versus amateurs. Why people that have the mindset of a professional achieve the highest success levels in the industry and are able to maintain it, and why others who maybe have the same talent, same work ethic, are struggling. It's just a mindset perspective. So number 1, professionals build skills, amateurs chase results. Number 2, professionals commit before seeing results, amateurs commit only after seeing results. Number 3, professionals have built a schedule, amateurs work when they feel like it. Number 4, professionals measure their input, amateurs only measure the outcomes. Number 5, professionals expect rejection, amateurs take it personally. Number 6, professionals invest in themselves, amateurs spend on comfort. Number 7, professionals take responsibilities, amateurs find excuses. And number 8, professionals build systems, amateurs rely on effort. Those were the 8 differences that I've noticed over the last 12 years that separate people that win at a high level and those, again, with the same work ethic, same talent, but they're completely struggling. These 8 things can mean a difference between someone who makes $2,000 a month and somebody who makes $50,000 a month. Again, same 2 people, same skill level, same work ethic, but just a different shift in mindset. Okay, so I hope those things were useful. Now we're going to get into the bulk of the live session, which is the Q&A. So again, as we do every week, your questions could be in correlation to those 8 things I just mentioned, the mini training, or it could just be questions of things that you're struggling with in your business, things you're unsure of, You may need an outside perspective or perspective from somebody who has more results, right? So I believe the chat box is open. You guys can start firing away. And as I recommended last week, definitely try to come to these calls with your questions already in mind or your questions already written down. Just so when you're here, you can start firing away. Because again, I don't actually go through every single question, all right? Because again, sometimes it's quite a lot. All right, cool. So, okay, that's an interesting one to start off with. What is one question that nobody ever asked you that they should ask, and what would your answer be? I feel like that's a cop-out question, but I'm going to try and answer it. A question I never get asked. It's a very interesting one that I should get asked. I would say when it comes to being inspired by somebody's results, being inspired by somebody's lifestyle, their achievements, I think one thing people tend to forget is anything that's worth having, anything that's worth achieving, there's going to also be a downside in terms of the price you have to pay. Okay. And so what a lot of people may ask is, what does it feel like to have a certain level of result, make a certain amount of income, to have a certain size team, to be able to do certain things like travel, to not have to work a job, to retire your parents, all these things. People tend to ask, what does that feel like? What is it like? Which, again, to answer that is, it's amazing to be able to do those things, especially when you haven't come from much. But I think the question that a lot of people don't ask is, what are some of the sacrifices or what are some of the prices that you had to pay that most people are not willing to pay? I think that's probably a question I've never been asked. What is the real price that you have to pay that most people are not willing to pay? If I was to ask that question, the answers that I'll be looking for, I'll actually be excited to hear those things, because I would understand that these are the few things that most people are not willing to do. And so if I'm willing to do those things, essentially, I should eventually get the results that most people will never have. I should be able to live the lifestyle that most people can only dream about. It's just logic. The reason why there's only a few people at a certain level is because they were willing to pay a certain price that most people are not willing to pay. And if I was to answer the question, I think one of the biggest prices is the risk that there's no guarantee. That's a huge price to pay. Like, to be willing to make all the necessary sacrifices, to be willing to put in the hours, the work, to be willing to disappoint certain people because you're so focused on chasing this goal, knowing the whole time that there is no guarantee that you'll ever get there. I think that's something that is an uncomfortable truth that not many people speak about. Like, this is a very difficult battle to have in your mind, that I'm going to, sacrifice all of this for something that is not guaranteed. It's a very difficult mindset to be okay with and to still progress knowing that there's no guarantees. And I would say that's probably the reason why most people don't embark on entrepreneurship, because a job gives you guarantees. Before you sign a contract for a job, you know what you're getting at the end of the month, right? So it comes with a guarantee. It has a sense of comfort. There's a sense of stability, which is a good thing. But on the flip side, it doesn't give you freedom. There's limitations, there's a cap. You don't have access to a certain lifestyle, right? So there's pros and cons in both situations. As an entrepreneur, in the beginning, there's no guarantee. Just because you put in the work, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get what you want, right? Just because you're doing everything that's required and you maybe deserve it, it doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. So that is a very difficult price to pay for eventually winning, is the understanding that no matter how hard you work, there is no guarantee. Now, my confidence, right, my insurance policy against failure is I'm going to become so good at what I do. I'm going to work so hard on my skill as it pertains to the requirements in the business. I'm going to study the greats within the industry in so much detail to the point where it's unrealistic for me not to become successful. That is the furthest that I could guarantee my success in the industry, is my willingness to do absolutely everything it takes and to, be willing to do the things that most people aren't willing to do. So that is one big price to pay. Another price is the temporary sacrifices, especially in the beginning, when you're building your confidence, when you're building your skill, when you're building your reputation. I personally chose to make a lot of sacrifices. I sacrificed my football career. I joined the industry at 20 years old. And prior to that, I was in America. I was on a football scholarship. I sacrificed my football career, or the chances of becoming a professional. It was very slim, but I sacrificed it to pursue this. I sacrificed going out to party. My first 4 or 5 years, I rarely went out to party. I was just focused on building the business. I sacrificed at times a stable income. There were some jobs that I had that were just honestly taking up too much of my time, right? Too much of my energy. And I had to find jobs, which was very difficult, that didn't pay as well, but they were more flexible. So I sacrificed in that aspect. And again, all these sacrifices were never going to guarantee that I was going to be successful. So it goes back to number one, just being okay with that mindset that there's no guarantees. I sacrificed holidays, I sacrificed money, like paying for mentorship, paying to attend international events. A lot of the time in the early years, I would pay to go to events and I couldn't really afford to, but I made those sacrifices to make sure that I'm in certain rooms where I knew that being there was going to be an investment into myself, my skills, my experiences, my network. What else? Sacrificing time, energy, effort. There's a lot. And I think the hardest thing is sacrificing all of those things for a long period of time. Like when I speak about my journey, going 3 years, making $100 a month, that it sounds short because I'm saying it, but just imagine living day to day for 3 years. Like all the ups and downs you got to go through during a business, all the doubts you have in your mind, and all the sacrifices you're making along the way. It's a lot more difficult living it than what it sounds, right? So I believe that is probably the biggest question that nobody asks. What are some of the main sacrifices? And then on the flip side, is it worth it? All the sacrifices that you had to make, now looking back, is it worth it? And the honest answer I will give is I would do it again every time. Every single thing that I had to sacrifice, every price that I had to pay to get here, I would do it all over again. And the reason why I would do that is because 6 years ago, when I was in prison, and I really sat down and analyzed, what do I actually want from life? Like, what is important to me? What is something that is worth me fighting for? And number one was I wanted my 24 hours. I wanted control of my 24 hours. So I knew that I couldn't work a job, forever. That wasn't my lane because somebody else couldn't have access or control over my time. I needed my 24 hours to be whatever I wanted to do. And number two, I wanted very few limitations. And making a certain amount of money allows most limitations to disappear, right? Depending on how much you're making. So that might be where you want to live, how you want to live, where you want to travel to, how you want to travel, being able to help your family, being able to buy what you want. I wanted to be able to do what I want to do within reason without having money as a limitation. So those two things for me was super, super important. Having control over my time and not having money as a limitation. If I had those two things, then that solves probably two of the biggest problems that I had in my own life. And everything outside of that, anything that I wanted to do, if I had no limitations with money and I had control over my time, I'm now in a position where I could live how I want to live. And everyone's version excuse me, everyone's version of how they want to live is completely different. But I think the two biggest things that are stopping people from living how they want to live is not having control over their time and having limitations because of money. So now in my current situation, I believe I have control over my 24 hours, like almost completely. I don't do things unless I truly want to do them. And I don't feel as though I have to do certain things, right? Which is quite a rare place to be. And on the money side, within reason, I don't really have many limitations on the basic things that I want to do. It's only like big things like, I don't know, I want to fly a private jet but these are not like important things. These are just big desires. But on the important things in my life, there's rarely do I have limitations. So if I was to go back, I'll do it all over again. All right, cool. Question number 2. Knowing my vision is to build legacy, impact thousands of families, and become both a respected trader and a leader, what blind spots do you think someone like me should be aware of? That's a very open-ended question. Very open-ended. Let me see how I'm going to break this down. Knowing my vision is to build legacy, impact thousands of families, and become a respected trader and leader. What blind spots do you think someone like me should be aware of? In the beginning, you have to be selfish. In the beginning, it has to be about money and results. And that sounds counterproductive because, you know, most people preach the opposite. The reality is, before you are going to gain a certain level of respect, before people are going to want to follow you, before you can inspire people, people want to know that you have results. People want to know that you're making money. People want to know that you have the lifestyle that they want, right? So in the beginning, before you can really impact people, before you can really have, you know, a lot of people following you, before you can lead a large group of people, it does have to be about the money in the beginning. And that's probably a blind spot, because some people in the beginning, before they make money or before they have a certain level of results, they want to become motivational speakers. They want to, you know, become a leader. They want to speak on stage. They want to give advice. They want to do trainings. They want to do all these things that a successful person that already has results and has already made a certain amount of money, without understanding that before you can get to that level, you must have a certain level of results. And you must, you know, you don't have to, but it makes it a lot easier to inspire people. It makes it a lot easier to impact people. It makes it a lot easier to have people follow you when they know that you have results and you actually make a certain amount of money. You've actually been able to change your life, right? So I think that's probably a big blind spot. Not going too quickly from zero to, oh, I want to be a motivational speaker. I want to do trainings. I want to lead people. I want to, you know, inspire people. I want to impact people. For you to be able to do those things, the key that people are looking for is they want to follow somebody with results. They want to follow somebody who's making the sort of money they want to make. They want to follow someone who has the lifestyle that they want to have. And that doesn't mean that you can't lead people before you have results. It doesn't mean you can't inspire people before you have results. It just means those results and getting to a certain level of income should be a huge priority in the beginning. That is going to help your journey in the long run. And if I was to put a number on it, I would say as quickly as possible, right? Whilst of course focusing on the right areas, which are the skills that can get you there. You want to get to 10 grand a month ASAP, $10,000 a month ASAP. I believe that is a number where people can actually start looking at you and respecting you in a certain way from a business perspective in terms of the results that you were able to get. I think $10,000 a month is the starting point before all the other things become easier in terms of inspiring people, motivating people, impacting people, leading people, you know, building a global team, etc. Right? $10,000 a month, I would say, is the baseline. Ella says, what habits or routines have you implanted daily that have had the biggest impact on your success? What is the biggest one? There's no guarantee that this is true because there's no real way to measure this. And it's not something that I like to speak about or train on a lot because it's very hard to prove that this works, right? So I can only really speak from my own experience, my own belief system. But I honestly believe that the daily affirmations, I don't really do them anymore because I kind of believe that it's so ingrained in my subconscious and who I am that I don't really feel the need to. But in the early stages, when I lacked confidence, when I lacked consistency, when I lacked in so many different areas, affirmations that I would do on a daily basis in the mirror, I would say is the one single habit that I developed that made the biggest difference. And I'll try and explain it from more of a logical standpoint as to why I believe this made the biggest difference is because whatever you repeat to yourself, to your subconscious on a regular basis, eventually you begin to believe it, and eventually it molds how you think, it molds your perspective, and it molds how you see the world, right? So all the areas that I felt I was lacking in, I will constantly repeat these affirmations into the mirror every morning for 10 minutes. So I would repeat, I am disciplined, I am consistent, I am a profitable trader, I am one of the best leaders in the network marketing industry. Hundreds of successful people want to work with me. Thousands of people joining my business every single day. I am confident. I'm a great speaker. I am resilient. I am consistent. I am sharp. I'm a great speaker. I'm a great closer. I'm a great trainer. All these things that I was not confident in, I would repeat them like over and over and over again. Now, here's where I'm going to try and add some logic. It wasn't like these things were magic. I didn't magically become these things just because I said it, but those affirmations slowly rewired my subconscious beliefs about myself, right? So me saying over and over again, I'm a great speaker, right? Anytime I maybe hopped on a training or anytime I went on stage, like subconsciously, I began to believe that I'm a great speaker. And so before I'd go on stage, used to be nervous. I used to get sweaty. My palms are sweaty. I'm thinking, what if I mess up my words? And slowly, after repeating certain things over and over again in the morning, in the mirror, over and over again, I would now show up on stage very differently. I would speak with my chest high, and this is even before I had results. So it wasn't the results that was bringing the confidence. It was this rewiring process. And I'll speak with conviction. I'll speak clearly. I'll speak with clarity. I'll speak in ways that, would capture the audience. And that's one example. Essentially, I learned that your subconscious cannot think, perceive the world, and it cannot operate consistently in ways that contradict its programming. I'll repeat that again. Your subconscious cannot consistently think, perceive, and behave in ways that contradict its programming. So if I'm constantly telling myself I am disciplined, I'm consistent, the moment I do something that represents somebody who's undisciplined and somebody that's inconsistent, it now doesn't sit well with me, if that makes sense. Like if I don't go gym for a week, I don't feel right. Like I feel strange because my current programming is I'm a disciplined individual. I'm a healthy individual. I'm a very fit individual. I'm a strong individual. So if I miss gym for a week, I feel like the world's coming to an end. I feel so ashamed, disappointed. I feel terrible. But maybe 7 years ago, I could go a month without going to gym and I don't feel, it feels normal because my programming was completely different back then to what it is now. Same thing in a business. If I don't show up to the business in a certain way, if I'm not consistent in the business, if I write down a schedule and I don't follow through with it, I'm not going to feel great. I'm going to feel a certain way. It's going to be so uncomfortable the way I'm feeling, that I need to do something about it. Because I've said to myself in the mirror, I'm a man of my word. I've said I'm a man of principle. I said in the mirror every day, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. When I write down a goal, I make sure that goal comes to reality. So when I'm saying all these things, my subconscious is like reprogramming to correlate with what it is that I'm saying. Okay. Now, again, there's no actual way to prove this. And this is why I don't really preach this much. But this is, if I was to, say one single habit that changed everything, this will be the highest thing on the list. And just in closing on that point, I think working on those things made my job, made the work, the discipline, the sacrifices, the consistency, it made it easier. Because now it didn't feel like I needed to motivate myself to do the work. It didn't feel like I needed to perform these activities. It just felt like this is now normal. This is who I am, right? And so I would say that's probably the biggest difference, the biggest one. What did your day-to-day schedule look like when you was a 2K going 5K? Did you experience lack of duplication inside your business? And what did you do to improve the result? So I was a 2K for 3 years, so I think I can answer that. I was stuck at $2,000 a month for 3 years, which was not easy, because $2,000 a month, in some jobs, you can make that. That's probably like, I don't know about today, 2026, but back then in 2017, that was pretty much what I would make in a day job. But it wasn't enough to invest in my business. It wasn't enough to be able to travel to maybe certain events. It was barely enough to just pay my bills. So I literally felt as though I was still broke, right? The habits, what were my day-to-day habits when I was going 5K? I think I won't tell you the habits, because those habits caused me to be stuck for 3 years. But I'll tell you the habits that I believe took me from 2K to 5K and then 10K, which all happened within pretty much a 90-day window, right? And I won't even say it was habits. I would say it was a mindset shift, right? Because you can have good habits, but you can still be stuck. Like when I was stuck at $2,000 a month for 3 years, I would say I had good habits. I'd wake up at a certain time every day. I'd work out every day. I'd do my affirmations. I would, do everything that's required in a business. That could be what I consider focusing on busy work instead of focusing on income producing activities. And I think that was the major difference in mindset. Whatever your schedule is, or whatever your day-to-day is, everyone's probably looks the same. But the main difference is, for me, that took me from 2K to 5K and then 10K, was I really laser focused on income producing activities, number one. And number two, I got heavily focused on the skills that were going to lead to income producing activities. For example, an income producing activity is maybe doing a presentation, okay, as an income producing activity. So I would heavily focus on the skill behind that income producing activity, which means I would focus on effectively closing, how to handle objections. I would focus on how do you actually structure a presentation. Like there's a psychology behind presenting, and I'd really focus on developing the exact skill that correlates with that income producing activity. Number two is, let's say, posting on social media is an income producing activity. You could just post on social media and you can consistently post, but your post can not go viral. Your post can get no response unless you focus on the actual skill behind the income producing activity. So what is the psychology behind drawing attention on social media? What is the psychology behind people wanting to watch your content? What is the psychology behind people that resonate with the way you speak or the type of content you put out there? So it was understanding, number one, what is the income producing activity? And to layer behind that, number two, what are the skills that I can improve within those income producing activities? And I'll say the top two were my presenting and closing skills and my skills on social media. That was the major focus shift. But the actual day-to-day, like schedule, it was pretty much the same. That didn't really change, but it was more the mindset of income producing activities. Okay, last one. What is one mistake that ambitious entrepreneurs consistently make that keep them from building their business for a decade? The one mistake is thinking that once you've paid the price and got to a certain level, you can stop paying the price to keep what you have at a certain level. I don't know if you guys really caught what I meant. It's the biggest mistake that I've seen people make that don't continue to win at a certain level is believing that the price that they're paid to get to a certain level is the only price they got to pay. And there's no more price to pay. There's no more sacrifices to make in order to keep what they have at a certain level. And I realized this very early on. The good thing is the price you have to pay to maintain at a certain level is a different price to pay to get to a certain level. Just like in a gym, the price you got to pay to get in shape is not the same price that you necessarily have to pay to maintain your shape. It's actually a lot easier to maintain a fit body than it is to go from out of shape to getting in shape. It's two different types of sacrifices and there's two different types of prices to pay. But the mistake is thinking that there's no price to pay to maintain a certain level of success when there definitely is a price to pay to maintain it. And it's hard as well because once you get to a certain level, you can be under the illusion that you've basically done what it takes. And once you've got there, it's pretty much granted forever, right? When in reality, success is not guaranteed even after you've got to a certain level. So on that note, I hoped this episode really answered a lot of questions. I hope you guys wrote down the 8 steps, the 8 differences between amateurs and professionals. And I hope some of those questions that were asked served the rest of you watching on this live. So on that note, I'll see you guys next week again. For those that didn't ask a question, I really want to encourage you guys to think of questions throughout the week so that on Sundays, you're able to ask more questions and really think about deep questions. Don't just ask, surface level questions. This is a chance for me to actually dive deep into those core questions that maybe people are thinking, but they don't have a platform to ask, right? So on that note, God bless you all, and I'll see you all next week. Take care.